Go ahead, Mayor.
I want to welcome you to this Johnson City Commission workshop agenda meeting, February the 16th at 12:30. The meeting is being held electronically pursuant to Governor Lee's Executive Order 71. And as a part of that, we will ask Mr. Peterson to read the roll of the commissioners present.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Brock.
Here.
Commissioner Murphy.
Here.
Commissioner Hunter.
Here.
Vice Mayor Fowler. And Mayor Wise.
I am here.
Okay. You do
And
not quorum.
All right, thank you, sir. At this point, I will open the floor to commissioner questions and ask that you direct those to Mr. Peterson.
I have, do you want them all at once, Mayor, or kind of?
I think
Go
why
back
don't
and forth here.
we go through the list like Commissioner Broxton's alphabetically. You go first. If you want to just go through yours, and we'll let Pete address yours, and then go to Commissioner Hunter and do the same until we get through the whole list.
Okay. So
All right.
Pete, the first one is 6.1.1, just the redevelopment and renewal plan. If you could kind of go through that, there was a lot of, in the resolution, a lot of information there. So if you could do that, and then I'll tell you my next one after you're finished.
Okay. The county commission has approved numerous resolutions that impact the TIF and the redevelopment area since the point in time that the city and county originally approved the redevelopment agreement. The purpose of this amendment is to memorialize and sync all of the resolutions that the county has passed since the point in time that the original agreement was passed. So I'll hit the high spots on this, or try to go through all of them. Well, let me back up. This agreement is going to have to be approved by the city. It will have to be approved by the county. There will be a public hearing on this to give the public a chance to review and make comment. And equally important, all of the creditors that are involved in existing TIF projects will have to approve this as well, since they have a security interest in a TIF project somewhere in the district. And these changes modify the existing agreement that was in place when they undertook the loan that they approved in conjunction with the project. So that explains who all's got to approve this. This agreement does not allow any of the TIF revenues generated by the county to be used for paying administrative expenses. It does, however, allow revenues allocated by the city to be used for administrative expenses of the JCDA to the extent permitted by the Tax Increment Act and subject to prior agreement of the city. The county was very firm, and the commission has already passed a resolution stating their monies could not be used for administrative expenses. This allows the city the flexibility to allow some of the TIF proceeds generated by the city to offset some administrative expense. They've got attorney's fees are usually picked up through the project, but they've got an audit to do and various other activities, salaries, those types of things. I'm not positive on this number, but I believe that in addition to the TIF revenues that the city allocates $135,000 a year to the JCDA for the purposes of running that organization. So I want to point out this allows it, but it doesn't mandate it. Okay, there is any excess of real property taxes over the base tax amount shall be allocated and as collected, pay into a separate fund or funds of the JCDA until such, and hold those payments until the TIF revenues are applied to pay debt service on TIF indebtedness. So this again requires that any TIF proceeds only be used to pay TIF indebtedness unless the city commission allows some of that to be used for their administrative expense. And this is based upon taxes collected and not utilizing a base assessment methodology. Another change is, or the county shall only be required to allocate 75% of the TIF revenues that the county calculates, and shall be permitted to retain 25% of such TIF revenues for county purposes. You agreed originally to allocate 100% of the revenues generated within the TIF district for the TIF. The county has voted to only allocate 75% of the county taxes generated in the district. So that will be a difference that is being memorialized here. The county shall only be required to pay the collected amount, as we talked about earlier. Payments due no later than June 30th of each year. Delinquent taxes collected after the calculation of the collected amount for any year and identified by JCDA or the holder of any TIF indebtedness to the satisfaction of the city and the county shall be allocated to the JCDA with the next annual payment of the collected amount. So in other words, if there is a party in the district that has delinquent property taxes for 2020, for example, and they don't pay, then the TIF part of their property tax payment would not be allocated to the JCDA when we make our payment in June. But when they do pay that delinquent payment, we would allocate the delinquent amount less the penalty and interest, which stays with the city, and the current amount to the JCDA at the next annual time that we make our payment to the JCDA for TIF purposes. Everybody follow me on that one? Okay. You'll also remember that the county had wanted the TIF or the redevelopment district to expire at the end of 2029. So that has been memorialized here in this document, saying that no TIF indebtedness issued pursuant to the plan shall be payable from incremental taxes allocated to JCDA for any tax year after the 2029 tax year. Neither the county nor the city shall be required to make any allocation under the plan for any period after the tax year ending 31 December 2029. However, if there is still outstanding TIF debt if any TIF indebtedness that is outstanding as of August 1st, 2020 is not paid in full with the revenues generated through the 2029 tax year and prior years, the city and the county shall continue to make allocations of TIF revenues pursuant to this plan until that indebtedness is paid in full. So whatever projects are in existence as of last August, if they're not paid off before the end of 2029, then the city and the county is required to continue making payments to the JCDA until those indebtedness are paid off. If you'll remember, at one time, I think the county had put a maximum amount of indebtedness the JCDA could incur at $11 million. that has now been changed to the debt cannot be in excess of 10% of the value of the real property located within the redevelopment district. And another resolution that's memorialized here is that the JCDA shall not incur any TIF indebtedness with a principal amount in excess of $25,000 without the prior approval of the county. All TIF revenues allocated to JCDA shall be applied to pay debt service on debt obligations without the mutual consent of the governing bodies of the city and the county. Okay, another important one that that we really need to probably talk about a little bit. The city and/or the county may exclude the assessed value of property subject to the allocation of taxes provided herein for purposes of establishing tax rates and in connection with periodic equalization of taxes as is permitted by applicable law. There are cities in the state that have learned through experience that properties within their TIF district don't generate any property tax growth for them. But if you don't exclude those properties when you start figuring what your equalized property tax rate is, then you're not going to generate the amount of money through property tax billing that you think you're going to, because you don't get that growth amount like you do all the other properties in the city. So state law allows, and this document is recommending that we follow state law, that when we go to calculate the tax rate, that those properties in the TIF district not be included in that calculation, because it gives you a number that will never pan out if you include those properties and the taxes that they generate. That's probably, I think that's the only change in this document, the only change noted in this document that hasn't already been in place for some time. Most of these things are practices that have been in place for several years as a result of resolutions approved by the county commission. And Mayor Grandy and I and others just felt like we need to memorialize and put into one document recognition of how this TIF is actually being operated. It'll be a great point of clarification, and it also ensures that we're operating legally without question. That's a lot to go over quickly, so I'll be glad to answer any specific questions you may have.
Pete, just real quickly, what are the funding sources for the administrative portion of JCDA historically? And when, I forget the year it was actually established, but does the county do any funding that's not TIF proceeds? And does our money come from the general fund or TIF proceeds?
Our money comes from the general fund, and the county does not provide any funding for administrative costs.
Okay, so what they're saying is to just ensure that no money goes toward the administration of JCDA, that it can't come out of the TIF proceeds. Is there a reason? Were some being taken out, or what is driving that?
There have been none taken out that I'm aware of. The county commission just voted that they only wanted indebtedness payments for their money, and that they were not in favor nor approving the use of TIF proceeds to offset the administrative cost of the organization.
Okay, my last final quick question is, in 2029, will this essentially be the end of TIF?
It will be the end of the existing redevelopment district and the TIF associated with it. Yes, ma'am.
So, but there
But you could
could
still
be
have
other,
project TIFs.
go ahead.
You could still have a project TIF. You
Okay,
just,
So
sorry.
to follow up on the mayor's comment, after 2029, you could create another district and operate it as a TIF district. You could also do individual projects. And within the district, we've done a couple of individual projects. So it doesn't mean that that's the end. It can never be done again. It just means this particular TIF that's in place will sunset, and you can still do TIFs moving forward. They will just require approval to move it forward.
okay. I wasn't truthful a minute ago. There is one more question. We set it up so that TIF projects didn't have to come back to the city commission. In this new agreement, anything $25,000 or more would have to go before the county commission for approval.
And that's already in place. That has been the practice for several years now.
Oh, it has. Okay. I just wasn't aware of that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it's just a continuation of it. Has it slowed down projects or disqualified projects?
I can't say with certainty, but that would be my assumption. Yes. I mean, it is another layer of approval, and anytime you have to go through an approval process, it certainly adds time to the start of a project.
It probably also incentivizes projects of $24,995 as well.
Okay, I think that's all my questions.
Does anyone else have any questions about the TIF agreement? All right, Commissioner Brock?
The only other one I think is on in ordinances, and I just would like a review again of the occupancy tax. It's on first reading this time. We talked about it a little bit last time, and just want to make sure I understand all the different elements of that.
Hey, Ms. Sandos,
7.2.
I'd like you to do that, please, ma'am.
Yes, sir. What you've got before you on first reading is essentially it's a step down in the classification of the taxing categories for the restaurants only that have on-premise liquor by the drink service or high alcohol content service. As the ordinance currently exists, it's got a Part A, a Part B, and a Part C. Part C applies to restaurants, and it breaks it down by seating capacity as to what tax would be levied. The ordinance amendment states that during a pandemic period, and this would be defined by the governor for the state of Tennessee, and the pandemic would have to exceed a 12-month period. And so the taxes that would be due at the end of December 31st of whatever year includes any portion of that 12-month period is when these taxes would be levied. In the current situation, taxes would be levied December of 2021. So December 31st, 2021, if this ordinance were to become effective. So it's not retroactive, but because the pandemic that we are currently involved in has crossed over into 2021, it moves this applicability to the end of this year. And essentially what it does is it just steps down the seating capacity for each one of those restaurants. So if there's a restaurant that has anywhere between 75 to 125 seats, no longer would they be assessed the $600 tax. They would not be assessed the tax, period. Any restaurant that currently has seating below 75 is not assessed a tax pursuant to this ordinance anyhow. And then it just systematically steps down each one. So the seating capacity at the 126 to 175 on any other prior year, they would be assessed a tax of $750. During a pandemic period year, they're moved up a category or down a category. So that would be $600 would be the proceeding tax category. But the triggering effect for this ordinance would be the identification of a pandemic by the governor for the state of Tennessee, which would be identified through executive orders. It has to be a 12-month pandemic that lasts at least 12 months. And then the taxes would be due again at the end of that taxing period for whatever year includes any portion of the pandemic.
Okay, just 2 points of clarification. The 12 months, the calendar is re-triggered again on January 1st, and that would start the count of the next 12 months in the calendar year. I think we talked about that last time.
Yes.
Okay, because we've been through 12 months right now, as a carryover, but it would begin again on January 1st. And then the second point is, why would we take the 75 to, the 75 to 125 to zero, rather than kind of taking were they charged anything right now?
The 75 to 125 is where our seating capacity begins for the purpose of taxation. So if there's a restaurant that has 74 seats, they're not levied this tax. So what it does is it moves everybody up.
So it was a threshold anyway. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Good. Thank you. And those are all mine.
Commissioner Hunter, do you have questions?
Yeah, the majority of mine are for Thursday evening. But Mr. Peterson, will Mr. Trivett be on hand for questions related to the school projects?
We can have him available, yes, sir.
And then I think Charlie Stahl and yourself could probably answer the majority of the other questions. I would ask, could we get more info sent to us in relation to 6.1.4? There was just a really brief summary as to what's being.
Oh, the retainer?
Yeah.
Sure. What that is, we've got, we have permits that have to be obtained to operate our water and wastewater plants. And we're in the midst of the permit process right now. And we're contesting some of the terms and conditions that the state, interpretation of terms and conditions that the state is wanting to impose on us. And the reason that we've used Bass Berry Sims for some water sewer work involving TDAC in the past and have been very successful with them. And what we're wanting to do here is to put them on a retainer, because we know we're getting ready to get back into further appeals with TDAC over the issuance of wastewater plant permits, and that's the reason that we were wanting to put them on a retainer.
And I'm assuming there's a meeting with JCDA today or tomorrow in relation to the agreement, isn't there?
It's a public hearing. I think it's tomorrow. Is that right, Sonny?
I think that's right.
I believe so.
Yes, sir.
So I assume we'll have somebody from JCDA on Thursday.
Yes, sir. Ms.
Okay.
Cantley should be here. Yes, sir.
That's all I've got.
Can I ask you while we were on 6.1.4 about Bassberry and Sims? Is this just to keep you from having to come back to the city commission every time we have a question that we would like them to look at?
By charter, only the city commission can hire attorneys. So it's in order to meet charter requirements in terms of hiring lawyers, and yes, it would be to keep from having to come back multiple times to engage them for specific questions or projects.
Okay, that's just all I needed. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Anything else, Commissioner Hunter?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay. Commissioner Murphy?
Hello, how are you?
Well, good to see you, sir.
Good. I don't have any questions regarding that particular one.
Any other questions about agenda items?
Yeah, I do. I'm in the sixth family according to the agenda. And so my question was mainly for 6.2.3 regarding the lawn care.
Yes, sir.
Is that why are you posing to break up the work with all different outfits and companies?
Yes, sir. What we did, we bid, we structured that bid in such a way that you could be the low bid on all of it or individual pieces. And historically, what we do is to issue the contract to the firm that's the low bid on a specific site. That ensures we get the lowest price possible. The other thing it does is by breaking that work up, it makes sure that we have a better chance of getting the mowing done in a timely fashion. Throughout the year, we will have weeks that are really wet and they can't mow. And if you're dependent on one firm to mow everything, it really delays getting the mowing done in a timely fashion because we're not their only customer. And so by breaking it up with multiple vendors, then the vendors can usually work us in and get our mowing done a little quicker rather than everything being dependent on one vendor.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I had a question for 6.2.2. I guess we're looking for someone to do trash pickup for the city.
Actually, what that is, it's another mowing contract for areas that are not on the interstate interchanges. And as part of that contract, they have to pick up trash at those sites before they mow. And that's just the way that the bid was described there. It's actually mowing and litter collection. Yes, sir.
Can you say about them helping us pick up trash throughout the city while they're, I think it might be a need right now.
Yes, that is an issue that needs addressing. I'm not sure that these mowing services I don't know whether or not they would have any response to just litter collection. But staff is looking at a number of different options in order to put more resources towards litter collection, and certainly bidding it out is one option.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anything else, Commissioner Murphy?
No, sir. That's it for now.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Fowler?
Just clarification on 6.2.1, the fleet oils, lubricants.
Yes.
We have a 3-year contract with a company and they're increasing our prices. Is that anticipated with oil increases? And it's not a guaranteed price for 3 years. It's just they guarantee us a price, a range of prices, or what do they guarantee for those 3 years of that contract?
Mr. Mayor, could I answer that?
Sure.
Yeah, this is it's a contract term with an annual expenditure of about 194,310 a year. And there is no, traditionally in the past, and this is what we found this time, this is very unusual. According to our purchasing director, this was sort of a surprise. The contract, although it's not locked in as far as it's a low bid, this is the lowest responsible bidder. And typically they have kept the prices firm for years as they bid it. But apparently market conditions after the first of the year, they're giving us a 7.67% increase in this price. So we're a little surprised by that. But the way the contract is written, there is no a maximum in the contract. It was just basically a minimum bid award. Purchasing director did say that they're going to monitor this pricing, and if we need to resolicit this bid with a price escalation contract in the future, they will do so. But up till now, that's not been something we've experienced. So this is a bit of a surprise to us. Yes.
Yeah. So that contract wasn't a real good contract because they aren't guaranteeing the price for the 3 years like it sounded like they were.
Right. And in the past, apparently there was traditionally, I guess I would say it this way, that the price pretty much was consistent over the years, because we obviously rebid this every 3 years, and this is the first time we've experienced this. And again, this is just 4 months into the contract too.
Commissioner or Vice Mayor Fowler, as you probably noticed as you drive by service stations, fuel and oil prices are growing exponentially over the last 6 weeks or so. And when I talked to purchasing and to motor transport, the company that has the 3-year contract was going to terminate the contract because they couldn't afford to sell us at the agreed upon prices when the contract was issued. And in reviewing what their revised price is, it was still lower than the second lowest bidder when we bid the products to begin with. So they feel like it's unfortunate that a 3-year contract can't be honored at the bid price, but it is still cheaper than the second low bidder with the increase included. And we were meeting yesterday with Tim's budget. This is probably something we're going to face a fair amount of this year and next year with increased costs. When petroleum prices go up, you got to remember that's fuel, that's plastic, that's rubber, that's computer pieces. If fuel goes up enough, it's going to impact transportation costs. So when petroleum prices go up, it ends up costing everybody a lot more money because it impacts so much of what we do each and every day. So hopefully it won't get out of hand, but I'm somewhat prepared to see increased prices across a lot of different things that we do as a result of petroleum increases.
I will be bringing this up again Thursday, just to let you know. So,
Yes, sir.
all right.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Wise?
I don't have any questions, but I appreciate the answers that you've given. Are there any other commission questions before we adjourn, or items, Mr. Peterson, you feel need to be highlighted in advance of Thursday's meeting?
We will be including at the end of the agenda on Thursday an update on our reopening plan. That's pretty much finalized now. And so we'll be making an announcement on Thursday about what's going to open and when and under what conditions. And looking forward to getting things opened up and people active in the community again.
I think there will be interest in that report.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Well, I thank you. If there's nothing further, this agenda review workshop can stand adjourned.
Thanks.
Have a good
Thank
rest of
you.
the day.
We'll stand adjourned.